Hello and welcome back to Refactoring Legacy Code. This is the second video of the series, and so far what we've done is we separated one big function into two, and our goal is to improve this code and make it better. So before we proceed with changing this code, we have to make sure that we have preserved its behavior. It's really important, and the only way to do that is by writing tests, cover all the functionality, make sure we know how this code behaves, and only then alter it. So without further ado, let's start by defining a test for it. So the naming convention that I prefer is to apply the should in the class name. So then every test that I'm gonna write here is gonna start with a verb. And I also prefer to have the production code on the right side and the tests on the left. So I'm gonna have them in parallel and I'm gonna see what I'm doing. So if we take a look at this function here, this return block, this return statement will preserve us getting further down. And for now, we don't really care about going further down. We have to, what we wanna do is make sure that we get into this else, so this return will actually escape this function. And the functionality that we want to check is this here. So we have some cards repository. This is a card repository. Let's take a look what we have here. So we have a function. This function is being called delete if exists. It takes user ID. Here it is. And that's gonna happen. So like actually we have a find method, so we can use that one in order to query and to see if this functionality was executed, and to make sure that we cover that behavior. And that's gonna happen if this weekly cards collection, I think, yes, contains, this is the configured action cards in order, get top prior index. So it seems that this is the name of the top priority card. And we can start with a test here saying delete by user ID when weekly cards collection does not contain top priority cards. We can keep in mind that we can always change the name if we figure out that it is not good, but for now I think it's fine. So if we delete the existing, if we do a deletion, then this find method on this this find returns some object, and we can actually make sure that it is deleted by saying a certain null here, repository find. We are gonna pass user ID and we are gonna pass name. Okay, I think I'm not sure if this name is a card name or a user name, but since we have user by ID, it makes more sense to me to have card name because it also returns card. So I'm gonna just use card name here. I'll see if I have to change it later. I don't know. Okay, let's resolve the repository now. So I'm gonna create a field repository. And user ID is UUID run. Well, I can just use any random, whatever. And a card name is a string, and it's not particularly relevant right now, so I can say irrelevant card name. I also do use double columns here. just to make sure, like I here imply that it is not a relevant name, but for example, if it was, it really doesn't matter what is the string. If I see this, I know it's not relevant. That's just something that I use. So I think, oops, I'll get here back. I think my assertion is fine. And in order to trigger, I'm just gonna do new legacy.validate. I have to pass user context, and I have to pass configured cards in order, right? Yes. Yes, here it is, because I'm calling this function, not this one. This one is private. Good. Yeah, so you might think now that actually, okay, yeah, but it, like, I'm just gonna get back right now to what I wanted to say. Here I just need new user context, and here I can just use collections empty list. Yeah, so what I wanted to say is, we can see here that we need a bunch of setup in order to get this triggering, like what we are triggering to make sure it works. The thing is, we don't really have to stress out right away thinking about all this setup to make it right, whatever. What we have to do is just let the test tell us where to continue. If we are asking the test all the time where to continue, we're going to end up with very minimal setup that we have to do. Like, we don't really have to do too much. Otherwise, if we are thinking, okay, I need this, I need that, and then constantly thinking about that beforehand, we'll end up with much more, with things that we don't really need, that are not really relevant for particularly for this test at this moment. So right now I'm having that compiling. That's enough to run it. I'm gonna run it and ask it where to continue. It's gonna tell me. Here we go. It says is feature enabled. So if I click here, this is being called here. That's why it's good, as I described in the first video. Whenever we are generating functions, just throw an exception as default implementation, no matter what, and then when we are using that in the test, we can see where it is and how to proceed from there. So basically, I need to write implementation for this one, and here is first. I have to commit this. I'll say first failing test for the legacy class. Yeah, I assume that this user context, it looks to me that this user context is a DTO, it seems like. And I'm gonna show now a tip and something that you can use whenever you're working with legacy, or no matter if you're working with legacy or not. For the tests, it is really often required to have a DTO, or like generate data class or something, an instance, but you don't really want to. There are details that are not really relevant for the test. For example, imagine if this user context had like 10 fields, for example, not all of them are relevant for the test. And how to make that, for example, to only use the things that are relevant for the test, there is a really nice approach that I use. You can use data builders, and those can stay in the tests. Often I find it interesting that I really have to use, I can use those in the production code as well, but it's easy to just move it from the test towards the production code if I need to. So let's proceed with doing so. So I need user context builder, a user context with feature enabled built. So this is what I'm talking about. I'm gonna create it in the tests package. I don't need it in the production right now. I might not need it at all in the production, but if I need it, it's easy to move it later. So I need a user context. That's gonna be user context builder I need to be returned. So here I will return new user context builder. We need a user context with feature enabled. This is user context builder. I'll return this and I'll say this is feature enabled equals true. I'll create a field for it. Oh my god, yeah. And here I need to return user context. Yep, and I have to do user context set feature enabled to is feature enabled. I'll create a method for it. I'll assign this to a field. That's good. And I have to just return it from here. Back to my test. If I run it, okay, now it says that the find is not implemented. Fine. First, I'll commit. Introduced user context builder for testing purposes. Good. We're clean. And then where to proceed? Okay, here I'll run the test with coverage to see where am I penetrating. As we can see here, we are getting to execute this line, which is green. We are executing this line, and we are not getting to the method that we really want. And that's because we are passing an empty collection here, and this check is not succeeding. So what we can do, we can pass here arrays as list card 1, card 2 is new card type, card 2 is new card type, and now I run with coverage, and I can see that actually it is executed. So many people are using this tool wrongly, meaning that I've seen it in the past, some management people were asking for like higher coverage, and that's super easy to, there are even tools to create, to improve your coverage, like to auto-generate tests and like improve the numbers. The test coverage tool should not be used to actually report to some management some numbers. What we can use it for, and what's actually meant to be used for, is for situations like this. We can actually test the penetration of the tests, which code is executed, which behavior is being preserved. And we cannot check which behavior is being preserved, as we're gonna see later. We might end up covering a line of code. This is really important, but actually the behavior not tested. We'll see it later. That's why we can use this tool only to see where the test is penetrating, which code is being executed. So here we see now that this function is being called. That's good, that's where we want to go. And this says get user, and that's not implemented, right? So what we can do here, let's first see, because I don't remember if we are yeah, we are not clean. Why? Let's see what we've changed. Yes. So I'll commit this. Pass non-empty collection when triggering the production code. Good. And then close this, get back here. Yeah, I wanted to do here with user ID. I'll use the same ID. I need to return user context builder. This user ID is user ID. Return this. I'll move it a little bit up and create field for it. And here I need to do user context set user ID, user ID. Okay. And here I'll also do the same, except I'm gonna use the studio instead of typing in manually, and here I just return user ID. Good. If I run now, yeah, so basically here it gets the it tries to get the name, right? And that's unsupported. First I'll commit. Okay, what have changed first? Oh, I added, and then okay, context builder. I've added the user. I'm passing the user ID. Git commit message. Make no user ID involved. No, well, make use of the user ID in user context. I think that's it. That's good enough. Yeah, card type. So we can also create builder for the card type, but because this class is in this exercise is not used somewhere else in order to break some functionality, what I can do is just here create a constructor, and it's gonna be easy for me. First, card name, create constant, it's gonna be string, is, again, it's not really relevant, card1, and I need to create a constructor here, card name, create field, make it final as well, that's fine, and here I just have to return the card name. That would do it. And then second card name. Okay, second card name, card 2. Good. And now I'll run again with coverage. I'll get back to my legacy, and I can see that now this is being executed. I mean, it is, yeah, we are penetrating towards this line, which is good, but we have failure, which says null pointer, and actually this actions default card, it is not being initialized anywhere. So we are here initializing, but we are not passing as an argument. Cool. Now first let's commit card type makes use of the card name. Yes. So what we have to do here is first we want to do, I will create separate in declaration and separate the declaration of it. I'll pass here the repository and I'll create a constructor. And here I will do this action default repositories repository. And now if I run again, let's see. Yeah, it says that actually now the default cards repository is not being implemented. Okay, now we're running around 20 minutes into the video. For now, I think, well, first let's commit this. Okay, here what we've done is inject repository in the legacy class. Nice. Yeah, so because what I want to show next is the subclass to test. Basically what we are gonna do is we're gonna subclass the actions default card repository. That's a technique that I wanna show. I don't necessarily have to subclass anything right now, but imagine that this actions default card repository was a production code that was doing, let's say, database calls or API calls, and what we need here is just to use it in the test. So in that case, we can use a technique called subclass to test and using seams, and that's why that's gonna take a little bit more time, and I'm gonna split that into the next video. For now, I think it's enough for this one. Thanks for watching and see you next in the following video. Thanks.